Good morning, America. This is the CATS Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here. It's the first Sunday of the new year. What's going on? The Russians are coming. Do we have a problem going on in Russia? Russia has arrested a former Marine, Paul Whelan. And with us this morning is Dr. William Parker, President and CEO of the National Defense University Foundation, to give us his opinion. Good morning, Dr. Parker. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mr. Catsimatidis. It's great to be back on your show again.
The Russians this week arrested a former Marine, Paul Whelan. He's lived in Moscow for over 10 years, I believe. And the talk around Washington is that the Russians arrested him in order to trade him for a Russian spy that we arrested. What is your thoughts on this? What's the small talk in Washington? What are they saying?
Well, I'll tell you that what you're seeing is a slow transition back to another Cold War, and hopefully it remains cold and doesn't go hot. But the reality is that ever since Putin has taken over in Russia, the former KGB agent, now the leader of Russia, has taken over, there has been a desire to move back towards the grand days, as he would call them, of the former Soviet Union. And so there's an increase there in those efforts. That said, you did have the arrest of Maria Butina, who was a Russian official who later admitted to being involved in espionage efforts here in the United States. And it looks like, it certainly appears like the Russians decided to grab one of our folks. It's kind of a bridge of spies event that's happening here, where I think there's an intent to do some kind of swap down the road.
There's also talk in Washington that because some people in Congress and the investigators, Mueller, was chasing President Trump on the fact that he might have had a deal with the Russians and he did this and he did that, that President Trump has been more careful dealing with the Russians. Has that hurt our position on not being able to be more friendly with President Putin?
I haven't seen that actually play out, and I will stay out of the politics side of it. But I will tell you, when you look at how things are playing out, the United States writ large has been pretty tough on Russia and certainly on China over the last few years, and I think that will continue, especially as not only the rhetoric but the actual activities look like they're going to continue to increase between the two countries and not in a positive way. That said, there are a lot of efforts out there to calm things down as well. So we'll see how it plays out.
I understand that there's going to be a meeting next week going on between President Xi or the Chinese delegation with our American delegation on trying to fix reforms on tariffs. Have you heard anything like that?
Well, certainly there's been ongoing efforts to try to improve this. As you know, President Xi and President Trump recently spoke, and as a matter of fact, there have been some tweets out on that from the president, and it looks like those efforts are moving in the right direction to get these tariffs and more importantly, the conflict between the two countries from an economic standpoint to calm down a bit. I think that what you're going to see is that the Chinese are receiving the message loud and clear that intellectual property theft and other issues like that are not going to be acceptable anymore. That said, there is concern by many business leaders that are traveling to China right now that they could be grabbed up, or it could be a slower process in getting their visas, et cetera, and that there can be a negative impact to their business right now while they're working in China.
The Chinese
this is a very
has suffered.
complex issue.
Yeah, the Chinese economy has been suffering the last few months.
It has been suffering quite a bit, and remember that their private banking is not the same as our private banking. Ours is much more solid in how we do business, and I think that is a big concern of theirs. So you have the issues of North Korea going on, which could very much impact China. And you and I have talked about this on your show before, and now you have this issue. So their economy is suffering and will continue to, I believe, as long as the two countries are not able to work out these issues.
And talking about North Korea, any new updates for the American people?
Well, so North Korea, the North and the South. This is the good news story. Is the North and the South are talking a lot more than they were before. There is interaction between the militaries now that there wasn't before in a positive way. There is efforts underway to remove weapons from the demilitarized zone, which is great news. And there is more interaction between the peoples of North and South Korea than there were before, too. So you're starting to see more of that happening. That said, we have a long way to go before we can throw up the flag of success that we have denuclearized North Korea. But we are heading in that direction, I believe.
Now, moving around the world, I mean, it seems like there's so many things that you're very knowledgeable on and the American people like to hear. President Trump made a decision that he wants to reduce troops in Syria, and he has said he's reducing them, but in the last couple of days he did say that he's slowing up the process, but it's still going forward. Any word on that?
Well, remember when the president was running for office, he had said that he wants to remove the United States from foreign entanglements wherever possible, and this is something that I think he's continuing to work towards. With Syria in particular, I think that one of the concerns that you hear around Washington and other places is that if you only have a few thousand troops there, how many of those troops are actually doing the job, and how many of them are there to protect those few that are doing the job? So if you only have a couple thousand troops, that means you probably only have several hundred that are actually trigger pullers / making some kind of positive enforcement, and the rest of them are defending, supporting those trigger pullers. And so if you're going to have a positive impact on Syria, you either need to roll in big and have large numbers there, or you need to pull out completely and not put those few troops that are there in harm's way. So I think that's one of the discussion points on whether or not we should go in fully or pull out fully, but it can't be kind of in between.
Understood. We have a minute left. Anything else you want to tell the American people?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of bad things going on in the world, but we have to still remember that the unemployment rate is still around 3.5%. We added 300,000 jobs in December, 312,000 jobs, I believe it was. The Dow's still growing. People are living longer than they were 10, 15 years ago. So there's a lot of good news out there, too. And, of course, we have the Catsimatidis show to listen to every Sunday. So these are all good news stories.
Well, thank you so much, Bill Parker. Happy New Year, and hopefully it's a great new year for all Americans.
Thank you very much. It's great being back on your show again.
Thank you. This is the CATS Roundtable. We'll be right back.